Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Futures, the podcast for B2B marketers sponsored by Adsact, the B2B ad platform. Today we are focusing on a hot debate in B2B marketing, which is fit versus intent. Every marketer wants to know when is intent data a reliable predictor of opportunity and when does it fall short, and how can fit-based targeting uncover those high-value accounts that are not raising their hands today. So in this episode, we'll explore how our guests think about these two approaches, where each shines and fails, and most importantly, how to bring them together into one strategy that aligns with sales and drives pipeline. But before we jump in the discussion, I'd love for our guests to introduce themselves, share a bit about their background and current focus. So, Lisa, would you like to give a sentence on yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Joaquin. Lisa Schwartz, currently with Digitate, which is a TCS company. I'm director of marketing there, and I've been doing marketing demand generation for 12 plus years, working for top tech brands in Silicon Valley.
Amazing, Lisa, welcome. Jamal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, most definitely. My name is Jamal Layne. I'm based in Seattle, and I am an account-based marketer for Snowflake. I cover the retail and consumer goods industry.
Awesome, welcome. And Ian, welcome.
Hi, my name is Ian Martinez-Christian. I am a marketing operations manager for Tricentis, a global software automation testing company. I've been doing this for about 15 years now, way back in the day. It started out way back in the days before canned spam, when it was really the wild, wild west. And it's been an amazing ride seeing everything grow and change as marketing has become more data-driven.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for those great introductions. Before we get into the debate, let's make sure we are aligned on what we mean by fit and intent, okay? To start with intent data, how do each of you define it in your organizations, and practically, how are you capturing and activating those signals about intent?
I'll jump in first. Marketing operations is kind of in a unique niche in this particular area, in that we don't care what messaging is. We don't care what a lot of the individual buying signals are. We take the strategy from the company we work for, so what they define as intent, and then we help connect the dots between those anonymous web visits all the way through to form fills and opportunity creation. So for me, it's really taking what my marketers tell me and then making it a reality and getting that data from, like I said, those anonymous web visits all the way through to, okay, this person's ready to talk to someone.
Great
Yeah.
definition. Thank you.
Ian, I think I would follow on to that. That's a really good description. I think similarly, we look at those insights from anecdotal data from internal sources, but we look quite heavily at data sources as well. We take a look at first-party data. First-party data is what resides in our CRM, in our database, wherever you're keeping your contact records that you're prospecting and your customer records. We take a look at the engagement that is occurring within those particular accounts, across the contacts, and how they engage with our brand. Then we look at third-party data, which is third-party data signals or signals that you can license or you can retrieve from current advertising or current brand marketing that you're doing. And those signals give some intent from people that are prospecting or engaging with your brand in a certain way. And then we take a look at like that second party data, which kind of marriages the two together, which is the first party data is what we know a little bit more concretely because we have that specific data in our database. But then we take that third party data, we merge it together, and second party data gives us kind of a sense of where those accounts and those contacts are within their journey. So intent lives across many parts of the web, many parts of communities across the web. It lives in your ad platforms. And of course, with that rich first party data that you have, that's how you kind of build your own internal intent engine.
Yeah, I most definitely agree with you, Lisa. I think one of the biggest things to add to, we can also use intent as a measuring tool. I think one of the most underrated things is understanding where your prospect customer accounts were before your campaign and after using intent. So for example, you can use your own name before the campaign and see where they're surging on your company name, and then after you run your campaign, you can see if your campaign was any effective or whatnot based off how much they surged over the course of time.
Well, thank you so much for those definitions. And to make this more dynamic, I will give the definition for feed-based targeting, and I will see if you agree with me, and feel free to challenge my perspective. So on the other side, I would say that feed-based targeting, it's essentially building your total addressable market, being deliberate about which accounts you should go after, regardless of whether they are showing intent right now. So these are accounts that are fundamentally a good fit for your business. But I would love to hear if this definition resonates with you, or would you add or challenge anything there?
I mean, I think that's a good definition to start with. I think there's, several segmentations that you can do once you've defined your total addressable market to be able to, realistically take a look at what your budget would allow, what the type of resources that you have within your company would allow you to actually serve and be able to market into. We do tend to go a few layers down from total addressable market to really take a look at where we can intercept within that particular account. And there's various different stages. So agree with you, Joaquin, there.
I think from an operations perspective, this is where it gets really interesting for me. We have a ton of data that comes from our CRM, from our ad platforms, from our data lake. Then we kind of we can cross-reference that, not just to figure out the people we need to go after, but the people we need to stay away from. Because effective marketing isn't just going after the right audience, it's making sure you're not collecting the wrong audience. And I think that's where mobs can really play a role. Is we're gonna be able to drill down several layers into those segmentations, like Lisa was saying, and we're not only going to get the people we need to go after, but we can actively tell people, stay away from these kinds of people, these kinds of companies, because they don't end up generating any kind of revenue over the long haul, and all they do is drain the marketing budget.
Yeah, I like that. And I think some of the challenges that we've experienced here, and I think a lot of marketers experiencing, is just bad actors, getting a lot of hand raises from folks that, you really don't want to get, especially at a surface level. You think your campaign's doing really, really well. And then when you dive deeper, you start to understand, like, man, these are not the intended folks that we try to get in front of. So I definitely like to concur with your answer there.
Yeah, that's such an interesting topic. We've done some analysis for our clients at Addressable, and we found that, for example, on LinkedIn, no matter how you build your LinkedIn campaigns, okay, doing, for example, ABM campaigns, so you upload a list of accounts, so you feel that you're very sure that you are serving ads only to these accounts, but however, LinkedIn loves showing ads to accounts that are out of that list. So it's so important to keep blocking those accounts that appear again and again and again. And we've identified like 100 accounts that appear in every single audience audit, we call it, when we analyze the ads, that the accounts that we are serving impressions to. And so yeah, great. I think it's a great definition to add that. Well, let's continue. Now that we've defined the terms, let's talk about intent in practice. So when is intent data truly reliable, and when does it fall short? Intent providers like Bombora, G2, Rollworks, and demand-based promise visibility into buying signals, but is that always translating into revenue? Love to hear your perspectives on this.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, I can jump in here first. In my opinion, intent data helps meet your prospect or customer counts tomorrow. It's a great indicator to be proactive, but I do believe it falls short on a use case one or going live with your use case. Intent data helps get your foot in the door, but it's the educational portion that helps drive the results. The great industry knowledge provides a perception of yourself being a thought leader. And that's where I believe intent data helps that initial conversation, but further alignment helps with that process there.
Yeah, Jamal, I think you bring up a really interesting point. The intent data definitely is directional. It helps us to prioritize the day, essentially across, BDRs, SDRs. Where do we go first to do some outreach and do some follow-up? I think Interestingly enough, there's some statistics out there that show once there's this swell of intent showing through some of these third-party tools that do a lot of keyword intent, for example, perhaps that prospect or company is a little further along in their journey. And at that point, going into the account you might be going in once that account has already realized the issue. They're starting to shortlist the vendors. It could be a good time, or it could be, slightly too late. I think for us, what's interesting is looking at intent a little bit earlier in the journey. And a lot of the tools now with AI are coming out with, the promise of helping you to coordinate quite a few different signals and generate these workflows to triage all those signals together. But it would be interesting to get earlier into the journey and use those intent signals, like, where that company is having digital transformation initiatives, or, those discussions or types of hirings or that give you that intent signal that maybe there's a very large project that's underway that, your solution could, help with. So I'd be interested to hear more about that, what's happening a little bit earlier in the funnel, as a lot of these intent data providers are sometimes a little bit later in the funnel.
Right.
Yeah, I think, again, coming at this from an area where I touch all the different marketing teams, one area I find it falls short is a lot of times you get garbage in, so you get garbage out. And what I mean by that is the strategy falls short. The layers that you're looking at for intent data, like Lisa mentioned, looking at it higher up the funnel versus further down in the marketing funnel, companies take a strategy. This has been my experience no matter what company I've been with. When you give somebody in tech a plain English strategy that you're looking to implement, it's my job then to take that and make the tech work. And a lot of people, we have to get this new fancy tool to help get into our strategy, but the strategy needs to dictate the technology. And when you do that, be detailed. A lot of times when I get requests in plain English and I come back with 5 or 6 different follow-up questions, say A, B, C, D, and E is what I need to make this work for you, they can't give me any more than maybe 2 of those. So what ends up happening is I put in exactly what I'm given, and we're not getting the data out that we want because they haven't fully fleshed out the strategy, or they just don't know. I think that lack of strategic thinking kills more ABX efforts than anything else. And that then creates problems when it goes to sales, because sales is getting unqualified leads that are qualified but don't have enough knowledge about what they're trying to do, or they're too far down the pipe and we've missed out on that RFQ or that RFP. So I think taking a step back before we start the journey internally, make sure all your ducks are in a row so things don't fall short further down the funnel.
And coming back to Lisa's point of having intent too late in the funnel, is that maybe because of a definition about the strategy, that maybe the teams don't think carefully about the strategy first?
I think that plays a part in it. But what I've seen more than anything is, like, to Lisa's point, they start further down the funnel than they probably should. Personally, when I'm there, I want to be the thought leader. I want to be the consultant that they're turning to as their source of truth. And I don't think enough companies lay that high of a level strategy out when they're first starting out to do this, so they get leads where you're already behind the 8 ball.
Agreed. Totally agreed. I think what's really interesting about intent data is, like, what are some of those conversations that are sparking that buyer journey? For example, think of yourself as a car salesman and someone's buying a car. You don't understand why someone's buying a car. You just know someone wants to buy a car, but there's so many different who, what, when, where, why to help with that buyer's journey. So Lisa, you're definitely spot on in terms of being behind that 8 ball in a later stage than earlier stage.
Yeah, it's interesting to know, which are those, where that technology is going to be headed to help us a little bit earlier in the funnel. I mean, for example, if we do get the strategy right, or we think we have a fairly good idea as to why a particular company would be interested in our solution, then my thinking would be, to Ian's point of being able to build that technology to support that strategy, where does that technology lie? And it sounds like it might be a mix of both. It might be a mix of the strategy part of it, plus the intent and the engine or technology side of it.
I couldn't agree more, Lisa. I think a lot of times what happens is when I get a full strategy and everything's laid out, I can then go find the tools to work to make that strategy come to life. But the other side of that, once I get the tools in place, how do I get that data onto sales? And I think that's another major, because we get sales coming back to us all the time. Oh, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. And it comes back to that's where technology lies, is making sure that data gets from A to B to C to D to E onto sales in a manner that sales can use.
Right. Yeah.
And how can fit signals kind of cover opportunities before intent ever shows up?
I think that when the strategy is in place to get people at the very top of the funnel, and because it's not just, okay, we get them at the top of the funnel, we scoot them onto sales. It's okay. It's like Jamal was saying, we have to educate the customer and make them aware of what we do, become that thought leader. And that's where I start bringing in all my other marketing teams. I get content involved. I get our campaigns team involved to put the right content in front of them at the right time, to make sure the right nurture email is reaching them, because we can do so much more higher up as far as, okay, this is what their real intent is. We can track page visits, we can track form fills, we can track ad clicks, we can track all of that, and then start, okay, they hit this box, we move them down, they hit that box, we move them down, we hit this box, and keep on going until we're finally certain this is where they need to be based on what their behavior and intent really is. But if we don't have that stuff farther up, back to Lisa's point, we miss that, and we miss becoming their thought leader, their source of truth. So I think when we have that, when we can hit the intent higher up, we end up doing a much better job as a company of becoming what they're looking for. And their intent then, their intent to get a software testing solution in place, in my company's case, we can really narrow that down so that by the time it gets to sales knows what product they're doing, what product they're interested in, how many users they're going to have for it. If we can get all that information beforehand up in the intent stage, because companies know what they're looking for, even if they don't. They have an idea, okay, I needed to do this, I needed to do A, B, C, and D, and that's what's going to drive their intent. It's what's going to drive all those behavioral the behavioral interactions they have with a particular company.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, fit data just helps unlocks that problem that your target account realizes they don't have. Leveraging demographic, technographic, firmographic data, it helps identify a solution that helps scales their company initiatives. Here at Snowflake, essentially, one of our biggest selling points is cross-cloud collaboration. So putting in front of the customer their technographic and the firmographic details in front of them, we can help them understand that our product can help scale their initiatives. If they're looking to add in X, Y, and Z amount of different cloud service providers, already they need Snowflake. Already they have a problem in place. So just getting in front of their details in terms of where they stand, their fit data, just helps them understand their potential solution or problem.
Yeah, Jamal, you bring up a really interesting approach, I think, that you and the company are taking, because you mentioned selling points, right? And I think, earlier up the funnel, as Ian was also mentioning, there is the need to find that fit customer where those selling points make a lot of sense, right? Where are they in that path? How can you intercept into that customer and be able to provide your solution, because you have previous case study that shows the success of other companies doing the same thing and needing your solution if they're implementing a particular use case and solution. So once those are identified, which I think, Ian, you might call strategy, once that strategy is identified, then it's looking at those sources, and they're disparate sources. They're located all over the place, right? So there's a little bit of like, stitching work to try to stitch those different intent sources together to determine the right fit set of accounts so that you can make your spend more efficient, as Joaquin was saying earlier, right? We don't want to have a whole bunch of companies in the LinkedIn ads that are not targeted well, and then you're excluding and excluding and excluding audiences week after week to optimize. So it's interesting as you get higher up in that.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear what Jamal and actually what you mentioned before, Lisa, about that segmentation from your TAM, right? That you can do using, as Jamal was saying, firmographic data, crossing that data with behavioral data actually, and make way more accurate campaigns. It would be great to hear some examples of how you build that segmentation. I don't know what kind of data you work on, what kind of signals you see on accounts, demographic signals. I don't know. Any kind of examples would be awesome to hear.
Yeah, I would say here at Snowflake, we leverage demand basic, just get a better understanding of the technographic data. Just get a better understanding, of what installed their accounts have. So if they have like, Azure, AWS, GCP, allows us to see like what competitors we have, but also how we can do a better together message as well. So we don't necessarily have to come in and replace what they currently have. We could come in and play well with their environment so they can now see the value of Snowflake from two different angles, either a better service provider or a service provider that can play well what they currently have. I would like to also add one more thing around fit data. For simplest terms, going back to the whole car salesman example, someone can come to you and say like, hey, I have like 5-10 kids. Already you understand that's the demographic data that person have. That's now giving you the intent to pitch a caravan, a mini SUV, whatever the case may be. I just wanted to allude to that to solidify my example in terms of how putting in front of the demographic data, the fit data, in front of that customer, helping them realize that they have a potential problem that can be solved right away.
Yeah, we already discussed a little bit with the relationship with sales, but I think it would be great to hear how you combine both strategies and how you build your infrastructure at the end of the day that you can give insights to sales at different stages of the funnel, and actually when it's good to interact with them and what to say. So any examples on that would be great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely kick this off. I'm sure Ian and Jamal have a lot of ideas there as well. There was a need to create new KPI that would be the result of these signals that we were putting together in a pilot that we ran a few years back. And the result of that KPI was when that KPI was met, sales would be notified. And the reason for the KPI was to reduce all this noise so that there wouldn't be all these signals coming in, and then sales is as Ian was mentioning earlier, is very unclear as to which is the signal through the noise that they should be looking into. What we did was orchestrated different signals, sort of keyword intent, from engines like a Bombora to ads intent using like a demand-based Rollworks type of ABM platform, and then of course our own first-party data. So the first thing was to get the first-party data in order so that we could have that to a point that we could actually use it. And then we put a very simple scoring model, I'll call it a scoring model, that allowed us to track this key KPI. And the key KPI was when we called it an MQA, when there was a marketing qualified account. And that was triggered on a very specific segment of accounts only, so that when a particular amount of contacts were surfacing within that account, showing intent that we thought was most interesting to share with sales, we would then trigger that KPI, and that KPI would set off a workflow that would have, certain notifications and certain enablement tools attached to it to do appropriate follow-up. So that allowed us to also create that alignment that was needed with sales, because there is a world that marketing lives in where we get, technical and very data driven. And then there's this world that sales lives in. We are a sales-led organization, so it's a little bit more relationship driven. It's more about, how am I getting in front of my key contacts, not looking at digital signals. So there was a little bit of education there, and we created this kind of simple framework to test out with the sales organization to create that alignment, and it went well. We had some wins, we had some buy-in. They started to understand our language and how we were approaching things. We learned a lot from them as well. So that helped us to get started. Now we're doing a little bit more advanced triggers than that, but it got things started with the heavy sales led organization type of company.
To build that first party data, I think that there must be a very strong collaboration with sales, right? Because a lot of data, I guess, is offline data from events or from conversations that are not recorded, all of them. So I think collaboration in building up that set of first party data, I think is important.
Definitely. There's always more work to do in a CRM. I don't know anyone's CRM that's 100% perfect, but maybe there is one out there. Maybe Snowflake has done it. So I'd be willing to learn.
Yeah,
I think we're all in the same boat.
yeah, I think from an operations standpoint, it really helps to get sales on board with making sure your data is clean and hygienic, just because, again, sitting in the middle there, I have all these ideas I want to throw out to my campaigns team and my events team, and then get that back to sales. But getting that data clean and hygienic and clean, I think that's one of the top struggles for any marketer.
Yeah.
No matter if you're in operations, events, campaigns, account-based marketing, it doesn't matter, because that first party data that you're building off of is key to everything you want to do. And for me, that's where, data appending services, Zoom Info, I think Demandbase offers something now, same with 6 Sense. Salesforce is even offering data appending. That's the trickiest part, because you need that clean data to build your segmentations, the accounts you want to go after. You have to make sure that their verticals are listed out correctly. You have to make sure your contacts and all their data, all their demographic data, their job title, are they a people manager, resource manager? Are they using the tools, or are they directing people who are using the tools? All that has to be correct before you can even start to build your intent data and your fit data. And fit data, that one's pretty obvious, but intent data, one of the things we've done is we've kind of separated out our end users, our end user managers, and then the executives, so we can have different messaging, and because they all have different intent signals too. If their fit's right, you have a pretty good idea of knowing what their signals are going to be. Are they looking at how you're solving problems on a business level, that digital transformation level that Lisa's mentioned? Are they the end users that are experiencing headaches and trials and tribulations on the product that you're using? Because you can have different messaging. Hey, we're going to fix this problem we know you're having. Or, we're going to help your company be able to do this. And they're two different messages, but they both those messages need to be told to the right audience. A lot of times it's easier to build up than it is to shoot things down.
Agree. Garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
Again and again.
That is my philosophy in MOPS.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
100%.
it's important.
So we've covered a lot today, from reliability of intent signals to how fit data can surface hidden opportunities and how to combine that into one strategy that aligns with sales, the importance of first-party data. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear any final advice you'd give to marketers who are trying to integrate fit and intent into one single approach. What's one thing they can start doing tomorrow to make progress?
I mean, I can start first too. I mean, there's no silver bullet, as we all know. You kind of have to be like Batman and be that detective to find that middle ground. What makes sense? What are you seeing that sticks out in terms of trends, and how can you scale this across the board for not only your team, but to other marketing teams that are having same problems and issues?
Yeah, I think, Jamal, that's a good jump off point. I think the best piece of advice I would give would be to start small or start narrow, maybe take one use case, one segment, one vertical. Probably take the one that is most familiar to the company. Hint, hint, the one you've been closing deals with and are very successful with. Take that, start there, because you'll have the most material for your follow-up program, and take a look across, make sure you have your follow-up set up for each stage of the funnel, or ask for help with that to develop it, and start there. Talk to your sales team should have the most knowledge about that because it's familiar already to the company. Get that anecdotal information, find the data sources to prove out or not some of that anecdotal information. Maybe take one or two intent sources. 10 sources don't have to be a new stack that you bring in. They might already be around. It could be, as Joaquin was saying, the LinkedIn ads running. It could be Google, Insta, whatever ads you're running. Take the data from there if that's what you have. Start with that. Build out kind of a prospecting, retargeting, very simple two-structure campaign. Have that follow-up of content available, and then test and optimize, share out those details and get feedback. And hopefully that's successful for you.
I kind of build on that a little bit, and, definitely keep it simple. Don't get pie in the sky, happy feet ideas that you can't deliver on. And to that same kind of train of thought, make sure your strategy comes first and that your technology supports your strategy. Because if you don't have the right tools in place, you're not going to get the right output. But in order to do that, your strategy has to come first.
Yeah, and I would love to add to that, Ian, that not only your technology, I think your marketing, everything should go after your strategy, right?
Yeah.
This is strategy first and then all the rest. Well, amazing. Thank you, Ian, Jamal, and Lisa, for sharing your insights. It's been a great conversation, and thanks to our listeners for joining us on B2B Marketing Futures. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow and share it with a colleague, and until next time, thank you so much.